Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to call this special meeting of the Cañon City Area Metropolitan Recreation and Park District meeting on Tuesday, August 24th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Nick, can I get a roll call?
Yes, sir. Brett James, here. Mike Sally,
Here.
Jim Johnson,
Here.
Greg Dorito,
Here.
Nick Sartori is here.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to have Kyle come up. We're going to go right to the report from BRS on the Recreation Center.
Yes, thank you. So for the past, over a year and a half, we've been working with Barker Rinker CCAT, a contract that was through the city of Cañon City, also funded in part by the Fremont County, the Cañon City Area Recreation and Park District, and Bruce and Susie Bell. So they've been working on the feasibility, the building program, pro forma, and do have final results. They are presenting some of those final results, and we will be posting that on our Facebook page later. I have spoken with Daniel about this, and he will be able to answer any questions you may have, but we will be talking about the building program, size of the building, the roles, why we came to certain decisions, and we'll go from there. So I'll turn it over to Daniel and Jenna with Barker Rinker CCAT.
There we go.
Hi, Kyle, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Yes, you're
Okay.
good, Jenna.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all. Thank you for having us. Here comes my colleague Daniel now. He's going to start the presentation. Daniel, let me know if you'd like me to share the screen. Looks like he's getting his audio dialed in. I saw myself up there twice and I thought, okay, what's this about?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Barely.
All right.
Barely.
Let's try this. Sorry about that.
So Daniel, you're good to begin whenever you want.
All right. I'll just go with this. Here we go.
That volume still might not be loud enough.
So welcome, everybody. First off, thanks for joining this evening. We did want to give you a little background about who we are as BRS. We come from a wealth of knowledge. We have over 300 centers nationwide. From this line below, you can see we've worked with in places like Erie and Montrose, Berthoud, Westminster, Broomfield, Eaton, Northglen's just finishing up. We have 46 years of continuous practice, and about 80% of our workload is really focused on recreation and aquatic design. And on top of that, we have about 1.6 million square feet of database of recreation facilities benchmarking. And what that means is us going back and really looking at what we've done and seeing what those trends are and how they've affected how a center operates. So today, myself, Daniel, and Jenna will be presenting what we've put together for your community. So we're excited to be here. something you'll hear from us pretty consistently today is what we like to, how we like to approach projects, and that's really balance. What you see here in this triangle are three things that we approach the design process or feasibility study process with, and that's program, schedule, and budget. But you'll also hear us talk about balance in the amenities that are provided for your community, the different age groups, and the different times of day that we're looking to provide things for your community. So before we get started on the things that we've looked at for your community, we wanted to take you through a virtual tour so that as we're talking about certain amenities or program pieces for your community, you understood what we were talking about when we said, when we talked about certain things. So the first one we wanted to show you was Eaton. This building area is approximately 62,000 square feet, and the service area population for their district is approximately 10,000. This building opened up in 2016. Does have many of the same amenities that we're looking at for you guys. Something that's often or could be overlooked is a good place to gather. And that starts with where you enter the building for a welcome desk or reception. That's the first interaction you have really with the building or staff. You see a smiling face. It gives you an opportunity for unplanned gatherings. So as you're dropping off a child and you see a parent who's in the same place, and you strike up a conversation, or after that pickleball game, it gives the community some place to come together. And we see that as an important amenity. While it may not be necessarily programmed, it is some place for your community to come together. Again, much like your community, we are looking at a fairly robust fitness area. And while this picture only shows free weights, we are thinking of it as has all of the sort of standard amenities of a fitness area, and that would be free weights and plyometrics, cardio, and then you start to see this running track running around the perimeter as well. In addition to where the running track abuts fitness, it also would, very much like we're thinking for you, this running track would also abut a gymnasium. And then, of course, we'd have a couple of program spaces, aerobics dance rooms, yoga, tai chi. This one's showing a spin class. We could outfit it for TRX or other amenities or other program abilities. And then an indoor leisure pool, so warm water. We're not suggesting that there's any right way to program a leisure pool at this point, but it could have things like lazy river, a small area of a rectangular nature that, because it's warmer water, it does give you the ability to do things for some younger kids, like learn to swim, and then aqua aerobics for the older population as well. And then you see in the background, there's a nice play feature with a zero depth entry. Next, we'd like to move over to Montrose. This building is about 142,000 square feet and their service area is approximately 33,000. Something that I forgot to mention about Eaton is their design direction was really looking at, in working with them, their agrarian roots, whereas the Montrose Community Center, that community identified with the Black Canyon. So in generalities, you can see how the variation in materials and how the striation in the building sort of reflects that place. At Montrose, they also have a gym. You can see pickleball happening there. And in the background on the upper level, you see their walk-jog track. Along that walk-jog track, we have a fitness zone, just like we're thinking for you guys. In this picture, you see cardio equipment in particular. Their walk jog track did, we were able to integrate a hill into it. So it's not just a flat walk jog track. You can see in the distance how it sort of rises up, and it just gives you a little more interest as you progress along the track. Montrose also has an indoor leisure pool. You see the lazy river in the foreground. Again, the play feature there in the background with the zero depth entry, and beyond that, a little bit of square water. Again, warmer water with the ability for basketball. You see that basketball hoop, learn to swim, aqua aerobics, things of the sort. Montrose also has an indoor lap pool. They've programmed this with a plunge slide there on the right, so that it is used by all age groups in that respect. Now moving on to Cañon City, where we started with there a few years ago was really reaching out to the community and asking what they felt was needed. So at that time, not the most recent survey, but this survey from a few years ago was approximately 6,200 mailed, and approximately 1,500 were returned. And what that told us were the most desired amenities were warm water activity, competitive lap swimming, a gymnasium, and fitness areas. So we felt like that was still a fair place to start and continue our study moving forward. So what we came away with for you guys and the amenities for your community was, we talked about these in the two previous, a lobby and reception area, Child Watch, which gives it's not a place that necessarily would provide income for the center, but it does support the programming abilities. A party room, aerobics rooms that we talked about, a multi-purpose room that could be used for classes. It could potentially be used for low aerobic fitness as well, like yoga or Tai Chi, silver sneakers, things of the sort, but could also be used for classes or presentations, banquets, rental opportunities, etc. On the bottom left there, a leisure pool, a gymnasium, a good fitness and weight area, a walk jog track, and of course, with all of these amenities, we need a good assortment of locker rooms and then an outdoor lap pool. To move forward to the specificity of where we were headed, or where we are headed, is that the Recreation Center is currently looked at as within the new development, just north of the existing Abbey. So it's fairly well located on the major streets of what that development may turn out to look like. It's on that main artery leading in from 50 there, so you will see it when you come in, which is great. And how the amenities were laid out, we looked at as a two-story layout, and the entrance being somewhat on the north based on the site location where the recreation center was imagined. As you come in that lobby, on the plan here, the indoor pool would be right there on the right, and the bottom of the plans, the gymnasium and the outdoor pool there on the right as well. What you see directly off of the lobby and purposefully in front of where we would control the building, where you would pay to get in, would be a hallway down to Child Watch and the two multi-purpose rooms. As you move upstairs, there's the fitness area that we talked about, one of the aerobics rooms, and a walk jog track around the perimeter, as well as the other aerobics room and the potential for maybe a fitness deck there looking south. Now, what you see here and what you heard us talk about for those other communities was how does the architecture connect to the place? What we would suggest is that we take the time when the design comes to fruition and really make it of the place. Now we took a first pass at the design, and we think this is a pretty good idea of what may come to fruition for that Abbey site. But if we were to proceed with the design, we would sort of take a step back and really figure out what fits in Cañon City and what's right for you guys. So this is why I say that is because this is an idea, one way that the design of a building could come to fruition, but please don't think of it as the only option or necessarily the right option quite yet. If that makes sense. So what you're looking at here is that main entry off the parking lot. Looking from the south to the north, you see the outdoor pool, and right behind that would be the indoor leisure pool. To the left of that, the larger two-story volume with the pitched roof is the gymnasium. And then directly in front of that is one of the aerobics room, and then the outdoor fitness patio. Again, a view from the south coming up that main arterial drive from US 50. You have a nice view of all the amenities that are available. And then as you proceed inside the building, as soon as you come into the lobby, you get a wealth of what's available. Leisure water on the left, fitness upstairs, walk dog track, and then you see down past all that into the gymnasium as well. And then if you were to stand upstairs, you'd get that sense of, again, a view back, looking north, and all of the, everything that's available to you. And lastly, on the building and architecture side, we are seeing this, and this is a budget that is projected to the midpoint of construction in August of 2023. This budget contemplates things like the hard cost or the construction cost of the building, the hard costs of what it would take to develop the site amenities, so parking, curb, gutter, street lighting, parking lot lighting, pedestrian walkways, irrigation, and the like. This budget also contemplates things like professional fees, contingencies, plan review, tap fees, construction testing, furniture, and all those other things are wrapped into this total project budget. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Daniel. I always love following pictures of beautiful centers to now talk about the budget, but someone has to operate this center for the next 20 or 30 years. So, Daniel, you can advance the slides if you would, please. And just go ahead and keep it there for just a minute. So once the program spaces were determined, I worked closely with Kyle and with Dawn to develop this pro forma. This slide shows a summary breakdown of expenses, staffing, of course, as well as supplies and services. And we added 4% to the total operating expenses to cover future capital repair and replacement needs. So you can see total expenses are just over $2 million. The slide also shows revenue categories with the bulk coming from admissions, passes, and from recreation programming. The total revenue, which we took a pretty conservative approach, and we'll dive into a little bit in detail here, has the revenues at $1.6 million for an annual subsidy of right around, $400,000 a year, and a cost recovery anticipated at 80%. You can go ahead and advance the slide. I just want to elaborate a little bit. Daniel talked about benchmarking that we do. So over the last 5 years, BRS has benchmarked the operational performance of 17 BRS design community recreation centers across 8 states, as he mentioned. You know, we ask for and we compare their expenses and their revenues, their attendance trends. We ask what their cost recovery is like. And we gather this because we want to know how our centers are operating, right? We want to know how we can design better buildings, how we can operate more efficiently. And this data also helps us with other communities to establish and meet realistic expense and revenue projections. And I'll reference it a bit. Go back a slide, please, Daniel. Okay, so staffing requirements, again, these were developed with the preliminary assumption that the center will operate Sunday to Saturday, 7 days a week, 93 hours a week for 51 weeks a year. That's proposed and it's pretty typical for a recreation center of this type. So Kyle and I worked on the staffing needs to support that center. And as you can see, the salary and wages are based on anticipated district increases as well as anticipated minimum wage increases. So full-time wages with benefits, $643,000. Part-time staff, we note the annual hours of coverage that they'll need. Lifeguards make up the bulk of those hours. We accounted for other staff though. You'll see fitness instructors included. This is because with your admissions, you will have access to fitness classes, your basic general fitness classes and water aquatic type classes. And this is really smart. This is a great way to bring in that admissions revenue, but we did want to account for the expense. Same with the party staff, prepping that party room. We wanted to show the expense and the childcare. So let's see, full-time, part-time staffing, including benefits, $1,244,000. That brings your total staffing expense at 61%. And in benchmarking, we generally see that averaging around 65%. So we feel pretty comfortable with that. Okay, you can go ahead. Thank you. Now for some staffing needs, such as front desk and the child watch, specific schedules were developed so we could determine the cost for those positions. You'll see on this slide, the full-time office front desk coordinator, 30 hours of their 40-hour work week will be dedicated to staffing the front desk. And this was very, done very purposefully. Because Kyle, we discussed this, he wants to operate this very efficiently. So that's a great staffing model, I think. Go ahead to the next slide. Here you can see supplies that include your everyday needs, such as office and program supplies, pool chemicals, building maintenance, janitor supplies. All of that falls into that category. Services. You can see utilities accounts for most of the service expenses, along with credit card fees, contracted services, insurance, IT needs, security, etc. And again, these are line items that Kyle and I went through closely to determine. And there you'll see that 4% added to the total operating expense to cover future capital repair and replacement needs. This brings the total expenses to $2,036,000. Your expenses are right around $27.69 per square foot. In benchmarking, again, averages across 17 centers, we generally see that at about $30. Okay, go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, potential revenues that will be generated are listed in detail here on this slide, with, again, admissions, those passes, daily passes, annual memberships, making up the bulk of your total revenue, along with center programs. Rentals, parties, and specialized fitness classes will also provide some additional revenue. Go ahead to the next slide. And this shows what makes up the rental revenue. For the gymnasium, you'll see the hours per week. These are the peak demand times for use of these spaces. I wish people wanted to reserve your gym at, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but this is generally after hours and on weekends. And then we take that and we applied a very conservative 10% utilization rate. And we did the same thing with the 2 multi-purpose rooms, which you can see with the multi-purpose rooms, the proposed rate off-peak is lower. And this is a great way to try and increase utilization during, those times of the week. None of the projected rental revenue reflects any pool rentals, so there may be opportunity for that. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Child Watch, again, you'll see that's a total gross revenue. As Daniel mentioned, on the other side of the ledger, we note the expenses for staff. Child Watch is, again, that's how you get people in the door. If they have a place where they know their kids are safe while they're working out, that's going to help drive your admissions revenue. Birthday parties. Now this, I think we were really conservative with, just like the rentals, as well as the fitness classes. As I was telling Kyle, this has 6 parties per week. You could have 6 parties on a Saturday, 6 on a Sunday. So I think that's pretty, we took a very conservative approach with the rentals and the classes. Go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so the admission revenues were based on daily passes, punch passes, and annual passes. Now, of course, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this, but those are the 3 that we use to develop this model. People living within the district will pay less than those living outside of it. And these fees were really established through discussions with Kyle. He and I both have reviewed extensively comparable facilities and what they're charging. These closely align with the city of Montrose, and obviously they're subject to change. But I think the goal, and which you'll see here, is that the district wants to maximize the cost recovery while still being affordable and accessible. I just wanted to note that annual passes make up 79% of all passes sold. Generally, when we look at a facility in a more urban or even a suburban area, that's like around 60%. However, given the location and, that this facility, this comprehensive recreation center, is really the only thing that will be nearby. So we really feel it's realistic that annual passes will be 79%. And if it is more daily, that's actually just more revenue, because it's better value to buy an annual pass. And so go ahead to the next slide. We'll end with this summary slide of the pro forma and open it up to any questions.
Any questions on anything we've just heard from there? Okay, Dolly?
Hi, thank you for your very thorough explanation, or presentation, I should say. I have just a couple of questions. When you got to the end and we were talking a little bit about annual fees and daily passes, have we established what that might look for our community?
As far as the rates?
Yes.
Yep, those were the proposed rates, which are subject to change. They are on that, Daniel, if you want to bring up that slide again with the admissions pass detail.
I couldn't read it, it's too far away.
Oh, okay.
So we just want to remind you that this is comparable rates to what is going on in other communities that we have compared ourselves to, such as Eaton, Montrose, Estes Park, Meeker, just to name a few. And there's nothing set in stone because we're not in 2024 yet. However, we are looking at doing things that are comparable to those facilities. So that's why we kind of set this. There is nothing set in stone at this time because, again, we are several years out. But Jenna can tell you more about the numbers.
Yeah, you can see here, adult resident, that works out to, if you're in district, $30 a month. for your annual membership.
What about out of district? don't
It's
see it.
out of district is $428. So let's see, that's about $36.
Okay. And what is the difference between child watch and child care?
So Child Watch is parents stay on site. So it's a service that the recreation center provides. Families want to come in and they want to work out. They can leave their child. Usually it's up to an hour and a half or 2 hours. They stay on site. They can be contacted if needed. So that's what Child Watch is versus a child care where the parent may leave.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the BRS? Okay, Frank?
I was looking at the concept you have with regards to the structure, it being a two-story right now, and I was looking at it, and if I understand it right, the track and the walking course is on the second level? And my concern with that, okay, is there's steps and all that, and we do have a very senior community here, and I think that would kind of be a drawback to them. Yeah, and a lot of them like to walk. You can go on the river trail and you'll see a lot of elderly folks walking every time, and I'm one of those elderly people. Me and my wife go down and walk on the river trail, and we'll see a lot of folks like that. So that's one of my, in a sense, concerns with regard to the other concept you have. You know, I don't have no problem with that. But my biggest concern is the area where our elderly people want to take advantage of stuff like that with walking and some aerobic type equipment and all that is on the second floor, and to me, that's kind of a negative for that group of folks that we have in Cañon City and all that. And that's the only thing that I see with regards to, in a sense, not a real negative, but it's kind of a negative in that sense.
Sure.
Won't it have an
We'd
elevator?
be happy to take another look. We do did not mention that there would be an elevator contemplated as well if there were some mobility concerns to get up to that level. But we can absolutely take a look at other ideas of moving fitness and or a walk jog down to the first level.
Frank, we have to be ADA compliant. There will be an elevator. And you'll notice that in Eaton and Montrose, these are also on the second floor.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Ashley?
I have a question that I already know the answer to, but I think for the public, we need to make sure that this is addressed, because I hear this a lot of, what we really just need is a swimming pool for the kids that's indoor that we can use all year round. And so I would like to hear from you as the consultants, why would just an indoor swimming pool not be a good business model? Why do we need to have the other features added as well?
I'll maybe go first, and then Jenna, you can follow. You heard us talk a little bit about balance, and part of what's important to us is, and part of what we believe makes many of these facilities across the nation successful, is to truly provide something for everybody, and that means indoor leisure water or indoor warm water pools, and that pool could provide something for the younger kids to learn to swim or just to play in the shallow water, all the way up to maybe some active adults, again, water aerobics, things like that. But in addition to that, who are we leaving out that just people who may not want to interact with water? Can we provide them an amenity, a program, a class, some other way for the community to come together, whether it be via active or passive recreation or community gathering? And then I think Jenna has, well, some thoughts about how that affects the operations.
Yeah. So just to clarify, your comment was the benefits of an indoor leisure pool
Well,
over.
why we need more than just a leisure pool for a community recreation center.
Why we need more than just, so why you need an additional lap
Right,
pool?
yeah, so, well, I think what I'm trying to get at, and I think the idea of needing something for everybody is awesome, because I remember growing up, or raising my young family, that, you know, we'd all come to the rec center and we'd all do something different, but we're all there together. But also as far as cost recovery, the lap pool is a zap on funding. It never pays for itself, and so we have to have other amenities there that will actually help pay for the facility itself.
Yes, and I will definitely, the party room that is shown, that can be a terrific way to generate revenue. And having that leisure pool, that's a year-round room that really it's just you kind of turn and burn, in my experience. Now you can design the lap pool for more watertainment activities. And that's something, we're striving to do, because yes, we think of all spaces and how they kind of coexist and synthesize. A leisure pool on its own won't make you money, but coupled with a party room, coupled with a gymnasium, coupled with an indoor walk jog track, to your point, providing something for everyone in the community, we do see that having an indoor leisure pool is one of the higher potential for revenue items, whereas a lap pool is a lower potential for revenue.
As a whole, in our studies and working with BRS, and then also looking at other communities and what their subsidy is, when you have an aquatics-only facility such as Woodland Park, they have between 50 and 55% sustainability, whereas a recreation center operated in Eaton, Estes, Meeker, Montrose, smaller communities, they operate between 90 and 95% sustainability. So at the end of the day, it was about what is responsible, what is the most responsible direction to go with taxpayer dollars, and being able to get proper subsidy to reduce the impact on the taxpayer. And we used that and what was going on in Woodland Park as a reason for the full recreation center.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask a question. This may be obvious to everyone but me, so let me admit that up front. When you talk about having an annual operating budget that is operating $400,000 a year right off the bat at a deficit, it did mention it would be subsidized. My question is, where would that subsidy come from?
That would be provided through the mill levy increase, the 3.5 mill levy increase. Keep in mind the recreation district is looking to operate and maintain the recreation center, but also what we currently operate. For the last 15 years, we've been pulling from reserves to balance the budget. We have to use CTF funds to balance our budget. We can't even store those away. So we use those to balance our existing budget. So it would go for ongoing operations of the recreation district. And please keep in mind, there has never been a mill levy increase for the recreation district. We've been in operation since 1965. So that is something where there is a need. With the recreation center, again, the goal is to get to 90, 95%, but keep in mind in the subsidy, we did not take into account several assumptions. We did not assume any revenue coming from Cañon City Schools, which, according to George Welsh in our meetings, will be significant. And so we know that there will be revenue coming from that way. Can we get to other recreation centers where there's 90 to 95% sustainability? Yes. But we also have to learn from other mistakes that have happened in other facilities near us. Pueblo YMCA had an issue with their pool. They had no way to financially deal with that. So we are going to have to use that to build up a reserve, because when something does go wrong, we cannot be expected to go back to the taxpayers. That is irresponsible budgeting. So we have to go back and say, no, we have prepared for this worst case scenario, and we are in a financial position to address that. And that's what we are proposing to do at this time. Right now, we do not have a mill levy where we can address those issues with the Ichabod pool. We have no possible way to do that. We do not have that funding mechanism. With the mechanism that we are doing here, what we are saying is, with that 3.5 mill levy increase, we can operate the recreation district to make sure that we have those funding mechanisms and operate and build a reserve for the existing recreation center. Keep in mind, it was very conservative. That's why I think Jenna mentioned that on several occasions, because we have gone with that $400,000 figure, but we cannot make assumptions. We have to tell them what is fact and what is information, not go off assumptions. So by doing that, we believe that we have given a full picture to the taxpayer so they can make an informed decision on whether or not to vote for this.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Councilwoman Gonzalez, Commissioner Ingram.
Thank you so much. I just had a couple of questions. One, I noticed on the first survey that you talked through that the second most popular item was the competitive lap pool. And understanding that we want something that is appropriate for Cañon City and what Cañon City residents are Rec District residents are most interested in. Is there a reason why that's an outdoor lap pool?
I think we looked at the.
Go ahead, Daniel.
We are looking at providing a shelter or a temporary shelter, quote unquote, over the lap pool. So it can be conditioned in inclement weather. It wasn't shown on the renderings quite yet, but that is built into the budget and design thinking so far. I think we all agree that we would love to have both pieces indoor, but we did know that it is the indoor aquatics piece is the most dollars per square foot, or the most expensive piece of the building that we could build. So if we were to build the both pools indoor, we would have to sacrifice some of these other amenities that addressed a bigger portion of the community and sacrificed a lot of our cost recovery potential as well. Sorry, is it hard to hear?
We got that, Daniel. One of the things that Daniel and I talked about over and over was aquatics. We spent probably months discussing that and coming up with different options. One of the options I would say to look at, and anybody can, in Castle Rock at the Mac Center, which is off of Plum Creek Parkway on the west side exit, they do have a structure like that over their outdoor pool. It does have an HVAC system, and there is year-round use at that facility. BRS has also designed something like that in Bend, Oregon. So again, it comes back to dollars. Now, let's say we did not want to make any assumptions on this. So we did not assume grant funding. We did not assume a capital campaign. We did not assume URA dollars. We assumed nothing in coming up with this building plan. We wanted to, again, go with facts and information. And what we did in that situation was determine that there's a possibility we could brick and mortar that pool if things go well over the next year after a yes vote. And if we do pass this, yes, there would be some grants that come available to us because we can use the bond as match. So this does create some opportunities. However, there are no capital construction grants. It'd be used for those off-site costs, soft costs, things along those lines. So there is an opportunity to possibly brick and mortar, but it would make an assumption and then also drive up the price so much that it would probably be not friendly to the voter. So it is our responsibility now to come up with that and not make those assumptions and find the necessary dollars in order to do add-ons. And Daniel, if you can speak, is doing add-ons, is that a common theme among the projects that you work with?
Yes, this is a big add-on, but what we try to do is, in order to leverage the volatility of the construction market is to have ways that we could either retract or spend money in the plan. So if we are looking at a higher level of finish for a certain area, we would call that an alternate, and we would add that into the design. So if we were to come back and have additional funds because, say, the construction bid came in lower than expectation, we knew the highest priority to spend those additional dollars.
Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the cost recovery that you've outlined, you expressly noted that you didn't include any of the pool-related potential income. However, you also, I believe, noted that that is the biggest potential revenue source for cost recovery. So could you just walk us through why that wasn't included and what that looks like? Thank you.
Because we would have to develop a contract with the school district in order to pay for that to a facility that is not built yet. So therefore, you're committing public dollars to something that hasn't been done at this time. But the school district is our largest partner year in and year out, and it would create opportunities for us to be able to, we've had preliminary discussions, let's put it that way, and we are looking at something significant, close to a six-figure amount annually. We would also look at working with the school district where they would then immediately provide a boys and girls competitive swim team for CHASA, so that would happen starting in the 2024-25 school year. So obviously there has to be some fees in that, but we are looking at working with our largest partners. But again, we'd be making an assumption, and the key in doing the pro forma, and Jenna can speak to this, is we didn't want to make any assumptions. We wanted to give people what the actual information is and what we can control.
Yeah, and just to clarify that when I said the pool has the highest potential for generating revenue, that's through straight admissions. You know, people will come to indoor leisure water, particularly, year round, but in the winter, in the summer, it's too hot. So, that's purely admissions. We don't have any additional revenue shown for the pool outside of admissions.
Thank you so much.
So I've got a quick question. I know that the prices are not set in stone, but I kind of want to point this out. In-district is $30 a month. Out-of-district is $36 a month. By the time an in-district person pays property tax or the mill levy increase, we're paying a lot more in-district than out-of-district.
Again, with the fees, this was something that we had to do for the pro forma. We took a conservative approach to it. Again, nothing is set in stone on the fees. This has not been determined yet. This would not even be determined until probably the end of 2023. So we are over 2 years out from being able to determine this. What we did was take numbers from existing recreation centers and looking at benchmarking to try to set some sort of number up. That was all the goal was to try to do within the pro forma. We're not trying to make light of anything for the taxpayers, but we are not going to assume that we know what those final rates are at this time.
Okay, my question is, I'm all about the kids, so I'm kind of curious how, Kyle, I think this is a question for you, how this would change programming for Kids Club, and would the facility for Kids Club be in the rec center, or would it continue?
No, Kids Club would continue at its current location because,
Okay.
again, there is a difference between child care and child watch.
So there would not be a change to the programming for Kids Club?
Kids Club would have the option of using the rec center, but would it be housed out of the rec center? No. We worked with the school district to design Washington School around the Kids Club program. So we have already addressed those needs with the school district, and we believe that we have a solid program operating out of there. Would they have access to this? Yes, but at the same time, if we were to put that child care program in there, you're looking at a budget add-on, and now you're driving up the cost of the facility. We had to make some hard choices, and that was one of them. One of the other hard choices was we would not move our district admin offices into this facility. The current district, the people own the current facility that the recreation district houses its office as at. There is no more lease payment. There's nothing else on there. It is owned. We are going to continue to use that facility as the main headquarters of the recreation district, because adding that into this facility could add another $1 million to the price tag. We don't think that's a wise use of taxpayer funds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. One thing that I just want to say, and is just, I guess, more as an advocate for this, is as some of these people are saying that, what is this cost going to be? But what's the benefits for our community, for the county as well as the city? And as people come into the city and they see a rec center or that, this is open to everybody. So we have people traveling here from all over the U.S., but as they drive through, they might want to spend the night and they can go use our rec center. And I think that's something that's very fundamental that we look at, and that's revenue that we can capture. But not only that, they come stay at the rec center. What's next? They're going to go get something to eat. There's that trickle down economics that's going to go throughout our whole community. And I think that's one thing that as everybody looks at this, that is one thing to see, that not only is this, it is going to cost some money to build this, but it's going to bring a lot of revenue to our whole community as a whole, not just the city, but to the county. And that benefits everybody here. Thanks.
We have anybody else want to make any comments or questions?
I just want to make a final comment. I want to commend Kyle during his presentation with regards to his upfront way of telling everybody that he looks at everything, but he's also considering and looking at the costs that the rec center can bear and not putting any additional costs on the public with regards to that. They've looked at all the expenses and everything else, and he'll come out, and he said it flatly several times here, he doesn't want to add something into the equation that may be impossible to accommodate or accomplish in that. And to me, that's looking at this center in a sense as the best possible way to make it pass with the voters. And the voters are the ultimate going to have to decide whether or not they want this to go. But if they paid attention and look what we have, and also he's also mentioned that this is still in the mortar system, So they're constantly looking at ways that they might be able to add something to the equation to satisfy some of the needs that several of us have brought up and everything else. But like I say, I do want to commend you, Kyle, with regards to your presentation and how you define what you feel you can afford and what you feel is necessary with the budget you have.
Well, I appreciate that, but I can't take all the credit. I have a wonderful team with Rec, Dawn, the Rec District Board, but also Daniel had, and John and Jenna have had multiple conversations with me about, hey, you have to be aware of these numbers. We have to look at this. And they have experience building this in smaller communities and conservative communities, which is one of the reasons why BRS was chosen, because of their expertise. And so we get guided. And one thing that I do want to mention and point out to all of you, Daniel talked about this in the beginning on size of the facility. When you look at the community we serve and the size of the community and the size of the facility, to put it in perspective, Cañon City, what we are looking at is 2.44 square feet per person. There are 25,000 people in the recreation district. So they get 2.44 feet. Meeker has 7.14 feet per person. Eaton, 8.57. Estes Valley, 5.8. And by the way, They're looking to do about a 10,000 square foot expansion. Montrose is 2.67. The reality is that you have a better argument to make that the facility is too small. That argument actually holds more water than saying that it's too big. Because the reality is, when you compare our population size that we serve to other communities, this facility is smaller, in some cases half the size of other facilities for the population they serve. Just some food for thought, but Daniel mentioned that in the early going, and that is something that we had to weigh. What was the price point, and what was the size of the facility? And that doesn't have anything to do with me. That is Daniel saying, whoa, wait, you can't put everything in there. You need to look at everything. And Daniel and Jenna, and then John Barnholt, who was involved, who retired in this process, they're the ones that really reminded us and drove that conversation. Without BRS and without REC and all the other people, this doesn't happen. My job is just to know the information and talk about it.
And I understand, and I appreciate your staff, but when it boils down to, you're the guy who's going to have to answer to everybody with regards to that. And it's good that you have that kind of support back there. But, you know, when it comes down to the time, who are they going to get in touch with? They're going to get in touch with you. So, but I do appreciate everything that the board and all the people have done with regards to that. But ultimately, you're the final salesman for this big project, and it's a wonderful project.
Mayor Smith?
Just a quick comment based on Commissioner McFall's statement about having the cost inequality between in-district and out-of-district. And just some quick number crunching, it's really only a few dollars difference of tweaking to make it equitable between a non-resident and resident, where a non-resident could just pay a little bit more and still make up for the mill levy that they aren't paying. And I think that probably be an important consideration to make, that the benefit is really coming to those that are paying the property tax, and that there's not an unequal payment. So not a really big difference. That I think that we can probably make those adjustments if necessary. That's all I have for now.
Well, and in regards to that also, there's a price point threshold in which people will use and will not use a facility like that. And you don't want to make the price so high that it's punitive to the people that are residents that are out of district. I mean, you still want to make it accessible, because it may be the city of Cañon City, but it also is going to be used by the entire Fremont County population. I think Kyle and the team that have put this together have taken a conservative but also a pragmatic approach to something that this community is dire in need of. You can look at it and you can say it's unfortunate that property taxes are going to go up, but anything that's going to be an improvement into the future costs a little bit today. And you always have to be looking towards what is the cost benefit to your children and your grandchildren in the community in which you live. And I think that this is something that will be here for a long time, that many, many of those people will enjoy.
Thank you. Any other comments from, okay.
I just want to make a quick comment. I do appreciate the attention to detail and the ultimate transparency that you presented us with tonight. Just a little quick story. I took a baseball team to out of state this summer. They had an amazing aquatic center, and obviously people said, why don't we have this? So I called our waitress over and asked what their sales tax was, and it was over 15%. So there's a couple different ways we can do this: property taxes, sales taxes. I definitely, kudos to you guys for this preparation. I really appreciate it.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, I think, Daniel, we'll probably move on to the Recreation Center survey with Paul Hanley, Beyond Your Base. Thank you for...
Good evening. Let me share my screen. So good evening. My name is Paul Hanley, Managing Director. And tonight I'm going to share with you the results of a mail survey that was done, sent out in July. If you remember, the survey included both a fact sheet and the survey itself, the fact sheet being an FAQ document. In terms of the number of voters who were targeted, there were 11,799 voters who received the survey. There are 17 questions as part of the survey, a total of 35 data points. Based on previous surveys done the last 29 years, we anticipated an...
I'm sorry, we're having a really difficult time hearing you. Can we do something about the audio?
We have the volume, but it's really fuzzy. So I don't know if there's something on your side, Paul, that might make it a little more clear.
Let me try and redo my... How's that?
We're going to adjust the volume on our end, and hopefully that will work.
Okay.
All right.
How's that? Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it. That's
Yeah,
better.
It's
Give it a
sounding
shot.
better, but yeah, the more you talk, the more we'll know.
Okay, let me restart my screen. Okay. Oops. Go back here. So as mentioned, we anticipated our response rate of 8 to 17%. We ended up with a response rate of 17.8%. So there are a total of 2,103 surveys that were received. 80% of those who responded had a likely voter in the household. One thing to note is that mail surveys are not scientific polls. Unlike a phone poll, we don't do a random stratified sample. The survey is mailed to every registered voter household. So given that, typically mail surveys, we need to realize we're looking just at the general undertone of the electorate rather than trying to predict particular success or failure at the polls. However, we've done enough of these over the years to tell you whether you have a chance or not, and if not, how would you modify the package? So looking at who responded to the survey, this is pretty common. We had a higher percentage of females than males participating. In the survey, there was also a box they could check if more than one person participated, but even factoring that in, there was females were overrepresented, which is pretty common in these mail surveys. As far as the age of the survey respondents, in that middle column, you'll see it says likely voters. So the good thing in Colorado is that we have really good voter data. So we can go back and estimate who we think is going to show up to vote for any particular election. And in this case, we can see the breakdown by age groups of who we think is going to show up for this upcoming November 2021 election. And then to the right of that are the breakdown for the survey respondents by age group. And so most of those categories were pretty spot on in terms of who responded in comparing to likely voters. You can see that the 45 to 54-year-olds were slightly overrepresented, and then the 65 plus was slightly underrepresented. As far as where voters are located, again, I can look at likely voter records, and based on that, we can see that about 61% of those who will show up for the election this fall live within the city limits, and then 39% outside those city limits. And you can see to the right of that what the data was for the survey. The survey respondents were at 66% city limits, 33% outside the city limits. We asked in the survey whether they have a child in the home, school-age child. 19% indicated they do, 77% indicated they don't, 4% no answer. And I think based on looking at the data, I think this is actually how it would probably shake out in terms of kind of a 80-20 type of turnout in terms of 80% of voters not having a child, 20% voters having a child under the age of 19. As far as home ownership, those who responded, 86% owned their home, 9% rent, 2% other, and then 3% didn't answer. And when we compare that to likely voters for this fall, you can see that for renters, they were slightly underrepresented, and for homeowners, they were overrepresented in the poll. When we sent out the mail survey, there's a reply envelope. And on that reply envelope is a little dot if there's somebody in that home that's a likely voter. And then there's no dot on the envelope if they're not a likely voter. Now, I don't know who participated in the survey when they sent it back. However, I can, just based on that dot, identify whether they're a likely voter or not a likely voter. And so from those envelopes that were returned, we could see that 80% were a likely voter or had a likely voter in the household, and then 20% did not. And then when we asked folks if they would be voting this fall, we had a slightly higher percentage of those saying very likely, which is pretty common. As far as level of awareness, we're usually shooting for 70% or higher in terms of them indicating that they know a lot or some about the proposal. And in this case, we're at 53%. And I think one of the reasons is that typically prior to doing a mail survey, we sent out multiple informational mailers. However, the decision was made not to do that for this particular project, just because there had been so much previous polling and education that had been done. And so the board felt like it was kind of overkill in terms of trying to do other mailers above and beyond the fact sheet that was included with the mail survey. So the reason we asked this question, we asked grade the district. And so this is what I call a trust test. So we're trying to figure out how much do they trust the district. And what we see is that those who give the district an A or B are typically a yes vote. Those that give the district a C, D, F are a no vote. And we see this very strong positive correlation. Unfortunately, there's a large percentage that aren't engaged with the rec district, and so 16% did not know how to grade the district, and then 2% didn't answer that question. So we see that a lot. These aren't dramatically different than what I've seen with other park and rec districts in the state that we've surveyed for. One very important question is, how confident are you that Cañon City Area Rec and Park District would spend funds for my new voter-approved bond measure and mill levy wisely? And this, as you can imagine, is rarely ever high when we ask it for any public entity. But it was actually a pretty decent number. So 64% indicated very or somewhat confident, and only 27% not very or not at all confident. And if those numbers were flipped, which we sometimes see, then obviously that's kind of a code red in terms of trying to pass any type of tax measure. So similar to what was done in the previous poll, which we were not involved with, but they did the same approach, was to use a Likert scale to figure out how much value or how much priority folks place on each particular project within the overall proposal. And we're kind of very similar to what we saw in that previous proposal, where warm water leisure pool is at the top. You can see that on the far right, high priority, and then on the left column, low priority. And so these are ordered by that high priority number 5 on the Likert scale. And so, for example, with warm water leisure pool, 47% placed a high priority on that particular part of the overall proposal. Then we just go down the list, 6-lane lap pool, multi-activity gym, family changing rooms, walk jog track, fitness area, exercise room, multi-purpose room, and then lobby lounge. The one that still surprises me, the last time that you tested this, you called it a running track. And we called it a walk jog track, which is more approachable, especially for that senior voter. But we still didn't, it's usually ranked in kind of the top 3 or so amenities, and it was still kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of the various amenities. Unlike the last survey, we were trying to recreate what you might hear in the coffee shop in terms of arguments for and arguments against the proposal, because that's the reality. That's what's going to happen prior to somebody voting on this. And so we gave it our best shot, both with regard to arguments for and arguments against the proposal. As far as arguments for the proposal, some of the ones that resonated most, that top one, having access to after school and summer programs at the new rec center will benefit both children, teens, and working parents. 43% indicated very convincing. By the way, on these messages, I kind of look at them as when we kind of look at baseball terms. So in the 20s would be a single, 30s a double, 40s a triple, and then if we sometimes we get into the 50s, which would be a kind of a home run message. Here we have a number of triples to begin with. The second one, having access to indoor rec space will significantly improve our quality of life as well as our health and wellness. 42% very convincing, and then the last one, community rec centers play an important role in keeping seniors, teens, families, and other individuals connected to our community. The one that's it wasn't a bad message, it just didn't poll as well as some of the others, is at the bottom. Construction of the new rec center will inject millions of dollars into our local economy, benefiting restaurants, gas stations, hotels, and other retailers that could use the additional business. And then we have arguments against. Top one being they felt like or 36% very convincing indicated that the new mill levy should be focused on operations and maintenance of the new rec center versus other needs. Second, our taxes are already too high. We could do that in any state, and we usually get that percentage, if not higher. And then with many residents and businesses still struggling due to COVID, this is not a good time to be asking for new tax dollars. And so these, while there's a few that were, again, kind of doubles, most of them did not resonate as strongly as the arguments for. Then the one that really didn't resonate much is residents already have access to parks, playgrounds, trails, and other amenities. The addition of a community rec center is not needed. And you can see if you look to the left, not at all convincing. We get kind of up to 34% on that one. And also, I want to mention this one. So if we need more indoor rec opportunities, then private fitness clubs should address those needs. Again, that was not a strong message based on those who responded to the survey. We asked a tax sensitivity question, which I think is important. So we look at the total mills associated with both the mill levy and the bond, which are 9.726 mills, which have a tax impact of $5.79 per month per 100,000 of a home's actual value. And when we asked that question, how concerned are you about the impact of the funding proposals on your own family's budget? We get 41% indicating extremely or very concerned, and then 57% somewhat or not very concerned. And so, there's a little bit of tax sensitivity there. We'd like to see that 41% a little lower, but that's, fortunately, we don't see it flipped, which sometimes we do, where the very concerned outweighs the other. We typically ask an oversight question. Most folks want to know that you're going to be making presentations, et cetera, to keep people informed. And knowing that, are they more likely to support it? And this is pretty common. They're typically, there's 41% indicate they're more likely to support it, knowing that the district would continue to inform the public in terms of giving updates on the projects, et cetera. So then we asked the mill levy question. We asked the mill levy being for operations, and we tested 3.5 mills, and the tax impact tied to that is approximately $25 per year per 100,000 of a home's actual market value. And actual market value is the value determined by the county assessor of what the market value is of your home or property. And in this case, we get to 58% support, 35% against. There's something called intensity. So we don't just look at yes versus no, we look at definitely yes versus definitely no. I like the fact that we're past this 30% barrier that we want to get past, and the definitely yes in terms of having a chance for it to pass. And the fact that the definitely yes outweighs the definitely no. Sometimes you'll have the yes being higher than the no. However, the definitely no outweighs the definitely yes. And so here, we don't see that, which is a good thing. Those who are saying definitely yes and definitely no are typically not changing their minds. So when we look at support for that mill levy for operating needs, and we look at it by gender, we see that females are significantly more supportive than males. So 69% yes for females, 50% support for males who participated in the survey. For those who checked the box where there were multiple folks who participated in the survey, not just one, we're at 53% support. When we look at support by age, again, this is pretty common. Kind of have this ski slope where it starts high and goes low. 18 to 34 is usually higher than the 35 to 44, but in this case, it's just slightly lower. But as you can see, those gray bars are yeses and the orange bars are nos. And the older the population, we start to see lower support level by age. However, as we go across, we'll go back to that slide, I put that line in to show 50%. So do we get across that 50% threshold for all age groups? And the only one where we end up dead on is 75 plus. So they were exactly at 50%. As far as likely versus unlikely voter, again, we can determine that by voter records and that little dot that appeared on the reply envelope. So those who were likely voters, 56% support. Unlikely voters, 68% support. Again, this is pretty common because unlikely voters are often dominated by a younger voter base that is more supportive. This is a very important slide. As we get close to the end, I'll talk a little bit about this more. But so those who have a child in school or a school-age child, 77% support. Those who do not, 56% support. Owners versus renters of their home. Owners, 59% support. Renters, 73%. We're not talking about a sales tax here. We're talking about a property tax. And so you can understand why renters would be slightly more favorable than homeowners. And then, as I mentioned, there's this, I mentioned that we did this grade the district. And why do we do that? Well, because there's a really, again, this positive correlation between an A and a B vote and a yes vote, and then a CDF, a no vote. And we can see here, those who gave the district an A are at 82% support. The B were at 72% support. And once we get into C, we get down to 53%, and then D, F, we're at 28% support. And then we really see this dichotomy with tax sensitivity. So look at those who, on the left-hand side, extremely or very concerned about the tax, 19% support versus 74% no. And those who are somewhat or not very concerned about the tax, 89% support. I usually don't see it that strongly. I mean, we typically see that, but not to this degree. Support by the mill levy by location. Those who are within city limits, 59% support. Those outside the city limits, 62% support. I forgot to look back at the old survey that was done. But I think it was flipped, where there was slightly more support from those within the city limits. But here we're seeing outside city limits more support. Then we tested the bond question. Again, this is for the construction of the facility rather than operations. And we're at 55% yes, 37% no, slightly lower than the mill levy. It was at 58%. But again, we still have it definitely yes, stronger than the definitely no. So 32% definitely yes, 24% definitely no. And again, just quickly looking at by gender, males, again, less supportive than females. Females, 66% support. Males, 46% support. So the question is, I'll go back to this one, why would they support the mill levy and not support the bond? Well, I don't know that the voter realized, or some of the voters didn't realize it's two ballot measures. And so you say yes on the first, and then you're like, wait, there's another tax? And you can see why you'd have a little bit of a fall off on that second tax. If we flipped it, I'm pretty sure you'd have similar results. If it was the bond, they'd say yes, 58%, and the mill levy, it would be lower because it's that second question. For those that more than one person answered the question or answered the survey, 50% support. By age, again, we see younger voters more supportive than older voters. In this case, the support level goes below 50% for that 75 plus group. Likely versus unlikely voter, again, unlikely voter more supportive at 65% than the likely voter at 53% yes. Parents, highly supportive of the bond, similar to the mill levy at 72% support, versus those who don't have a child in the home or a school-age child, 53% support. Again, renters more supportive than homeowners, 66% support versus 55% support. Again, similar to the mill levy, when they give the district an A or B, they're highly supportive. When they give you a C, D, F, support drops, especially if they're giving you a D or an F, they're at 29% support. And same with that tax sensitivity. If they're highly tax sensitive, they're a no vote. If they're not highly tax sensitive, they're a yes vote. Again, location, slightly more supportive outside the city limits. We asked one open-ended question in terms of, why did you vote yes or no when they were asked those questions. And so in terms of those that gave a supportive statement, so why they voted yes, there were some general statements about the need for the rec center, investing in our community, expanded recreation opportunities for children and families was a pretty common statement. A lot of folks, at least 4% of them, identified specific amenities, especially aquatics. There are comments about health, wellness, quality of life. I kept seeing this word year-round, having the opportunity to recreate year-round rather than just in the summer or spring months. Something for everybody. Rec center will attract families and businesses, and then a whole slew of other comments. On the opposition side, why did those who indicated no, why did they say that? 13% of all respondents mentioned taxes or cost or pocketbook concerns, or indicated they're on a fixed income, et cetera, just concerns about the overall tax impact and their impact on their budget. 4% indicated they didn't see the need for it, they wouldn't use it. 3% indicated they felt the scope was too large. A number of those indicated they wished it was more of a phased-in approach, focus on the pool, for example. 1% indicated they felt it competed with the private sector. 1% felt like there was need for stronger oversight. There was this lack of trust, et cetera. And then again, there was a whole slew of other answers. 8% of those responding gave a variety of other issues, including things like other needs should be addressed, like road improvements, for example. So in summary, there was modest tax sensitivity based on the results. Respondents who were not concerned about the tax were highly supportive, and vice versa. In in terms of priorities, they really fell into three camps. So highest priority being warm water leisure pool, 6-lane lap pool, multi-activity gym, and then family changing rooms. And then we have medium priority walk, jog track, fitness area, exercise room, and then lower priority multi-purpose room and lobby lounge area. And the reality is that you're going to have a lobby lounge. That's just the nature of the beast. And then most of these facilities have a multi-purpose room. In fact, they're probably one of the most busy rooms of the entire facility. And so while it received a low priority, I know from firsthand that they're actually one of the most used amenities of the facility. Arguments for the proposal, for the most part, tested stronger than arguments against, which was good because we gave them some pretty good, strong arguments against to test. There's moderate support for the mill levy. Those most supportive are those who give the district a high grade. They have a school-age child. They're 35 to 44 years old. They're renters and they're female. Those who tested least supportive give the district poor grades. They're 75 plus years old. There's a large percentage of males, half of them, of the respondents who indicated they were not supportive. Those who give the district a C grade, and then those who don't have school-age children. And it's not that there was a, for example, no school-age child, 56% support. Well, it's still a decent support level. And then with the bond, same kind of thing. If they give the district great grades, very supportive, child in the home, 72% yes. 35 to 44-year-olds, 70% yes. Renters supportive, female supportive. And again, it trails off when we start getting those who grade the district D or F. Older voters, 75 and older. Males give the district a C, and then they don't have a child in the home at school age. So before you high-five each other and say, wow, 58%, 55%, that sounds pretty good. The reality is that these male surveys are oftentimes 8 to 10 percentage points too friendly. The only time that doesn't happen is with fire districts where, in fact, they're even more friendly. And so I always caution folks to, yes, they look pretty favorable in terms of the results, but, my last statement is this, that for this to pass, you would need a really strong campaign to be implemented. Obviously, you can't use taxpayer dollars to do so. It would have to be a group of concerned citizens coming together to advocate for the measure. And I think to have a fighting chance of this to pass, you really need to get that voter who typically doesn't show up in off-year elections, especially that 18 to 54-year-old voter, including those who have a school-age child, to participate in the election. So I think that if you were to do that, it'd be a game changer in terms of being able to pass this. But without that unlikely voter showing up, I think it'll be it would be a very tight race in terms of trying to pass this. So with that, I will turn off my screen and see if you have any questions.
Administrator Stevens. So next on the agenda, we're going to have a discussion between all of the elected officials up here, the Rec District Board, and everybody, and just give us a chance to get to talk. I'd like to thank all the City Council for the support we've gotten, commissioners. This has been a long process. This started about 5 years ago with Ms. Sartori getting people together, and it was a grassroots effort from the community. And, we're down to the final 2 months here, and there's been a lot of work that's gone into this behind the scenes. I'd really like to thank Karen for all the work she's put in, Kyle, all of those. So we're going to have a little discussion here. We don't get a chance to come together like this in one meeting very often. So I'd like to turn it over to whoever would like to start with the discussion, or any questions you have, or any offer of support. After this, we will have public comment. So, if anybody from the public wants to speak, I think Kyle's got some forms. If you haven't already filled those out, then we'll do that after the discussion among commissioners and City Council and the Rec Board. So I'll open it up to whoever wants to make comments or ask questions. Go ahead, Mayor Smith.
My question pertains to the survey and how it was rated that this community is moderately tax sensitive, and I would have to say that we're probably highly tax sensitive, and that's a really big concern. An example of, we talk about the change, how the survey can't really completely predict the results of an election. In 2016, for our 1% sales tax for two-way streets, we had a scientific survey done, and it said that 71% of our citizens would support a 1% sales tax. When it came to the actual election, it barely squeezed by with 52%. Another survey had been done for the Black Hills franchise just last year for the 2020 election. That was in the high 60s that it would pass, and it failed by quite a bit. And so with that trend in our area of 55 to 58%, that makes me nervous that it's not quite high enough to make it pass. And so, as you stated, it would take really huge campaign to overcome some of those obstacles. And so that's one thing I kind of wanted to point out as we go into our conversation. And also that in our previous, pre-COVID, is that we wanted to have a land use agreement or a purchase agreement for the, so that this project would be shovel ready before we took it to the voters. And those are two questions I'd like to have answered tonight too as we move forward.
Okay, Kyle, would you like to speak on that?
Well, and I think I just want to make the comment that this is a lot different than a 1% sales tax for this, the sewers or the streets and things like that. This is an actual tangible, something that the community can use, something that they can get behind. I mean, those other things are something that maybe isn't as tangible, as usable, and maybe not as highly valuable. So, I don't know. From that regard, I look at those differently.
Go ahead, Kyle.
So on the land, Dan was working with the attorney for if it's shovel ready. Okay.
I think just some clarification on the land, the piece of property that we're planning to use, if we've secured that yet. Is that right, Ms. Smith?
Right. Have we secured the land? How close are we to securing the land before the
Okay,
election?
we're going to let Dan do that because he's been in the negotiations with the Abbey.
I apologize. I apologize, Mayor. I misunderstood your question. Without getting into too many details, because we don't have a signed agreement with the developer, and furthermore, because I know that the city council will have to, I think, address certain things with that developer. I'm not sure how much we should get into a discussion from both ends of that situation, but we have identified land, as I think was indicated in one of the BRS presentation at the Abbey, that we believe is the best place for this recreation center to go for the community when you consider the costs, the location, the accessibility, the central area of the community. We have reached an agreement in principle, but obviously a lot of it is contingent upon the developer of that area. They have a lot of hoops they have to jump through, not just with city council, but just, financially. And, I think any development that's not actually been approved and has construction contracts in place, I don't think you can absolutely count on that to occur, but this is about as certain as any development I've seen come through Cañon City in a long time. The board has discussed other options for other locations if this location does not end up being the location that we can use, but right now we're working under that assumption that it is going to be the location of the recreation center if the voters approve it. But like I said, I think the district has, in executive session, discussed other alternatives that would also work, maybe not as well, but would definitely work for the community in this recreation center.
Okay. And I want to be known that I absolutely support a recreation center for our community, but we saw a strong correlation between the confidence in the Parks and Rec Center and their likeliness to vote yes. And do we have enough of the information, enough of the contracts and agreements to garner that support of our voters to vote yes with this location?
Well, I'm not sure that whether we have contracts or don't have contracts is going to affect the voters' confidence in the management of the district one way or the other. I think that's something that's built over time through the work of the staff of the district, of the board of the district. I know that Kyle has done an extraordinary job over the last couple of years in terms of getting out into the community, making presentations to community organizations of every stripe, and trying to make sure that people in the community understand what the recreation district is doing, and that the district is open to hearing both constructive criticism as well as hearing ideas that maybe we haven't thought of for different programs and different activities. And it's a kind of openness that I think has probably helped build the confidence in the district, and that was, I think, Kyle's and I don't want to speak for Kyle, but that was his primary goal in doing that, was to make sure that we weren't just sitting inside, an office on Ash Street and assuming that the people in the community know what we're doing, but instead going out into the community and making that affirmative effort to tell people what the recreation district is doing and what our needs are going to be in the future.
Thank you. And then Kyle, I know you have paid an incredible attention to detail and you have done your research up and down and all around. And I have a curious question. It may have been the first survey where 16% of the respondents said that they would support a property tax, but 39% would support a sales tax. And where have the conversations gone between a property tax and a sales tax?
The sales tax issue was, there was strong concern it would have to go over 9%, and which would then put us in, we already know at 8.4 we're on the upper end. We're not the highest sales tax in the state, but we know that we're on the upper end. If you go to 9 or over 9, that significantly changes things. What we found was during our research that there was stronger efforts or stronger desire not to see the sales tax go within the business community as well as those in the community, and that they wanted to look more toward the property tax side, even though the property tax normally has a more personal touch to it. At the end of the day, the sales tax, speaking with Ryan, speaking with other city council members, there was no way we were at any point going to be able to get over 9%. We knew that there was a threshold there. So that kind of boxed us in as to one option, and then how do we work within that option.
Thank you.
This is going to be one of the hardest ones probably to answer, but I'm not looking at an 100% answer on this one here. But looking at with regards to the comments made earlier with regards to the land acquisition and it's being at its final stage, how close are you with regards to percentage that you will have a land location before November the 2nd? Because this is going to be very important when people come to vote, especially for those who are kind of undecided in that. And if you don't have something like that there, that could be the ones that really hurt you more than anything else with regards to that, because of the fact that quite a while back, when we were looking at moving the library about and putting it at a location, that's what killed us on that, because we couldn't actually go to the voters and say, this is even close to where it's going to be. So I understand you can't give me, I wish you could, but I understand you can't give me 100%. but could you give not just me, the public in Cañon City and those voters who are going to finally make this either fail or pass, a percentage?
Well, I don't know that I can give you a percentage, but what we can do is tell the voters what we think this is going to look like. Just like you saw some renderings of what BRS thinks this could look like in terms of the facility, those aren't, when that facility that's going to be built is not likely to look like those pictures we saw, but those are going to give the voters an idea of what the concept will look like in terms of visualizing it, rather than just saying, oh, there's going to be a lap pool and there's going to be these other amenities in this facility. We use these pictures to show you what it could look like, but once an architect actually designs it, it may look a little bit different, but the concept will still be the same. Similarly, I think in terms of the physical location, when this is sold to the voters, it's going to be sold as a facility there at the Abbey. We have a location at the Abbey in mind, on the Abbey property, and that's how it's going. I mean, that's what we envision happening. Now, can we say 100% as you indicated? No, we can't say 100% that will happen, because it's kind of a chicken or the egg problem. We don't have the money to purchase the land until the bond issue passes, and so if we had that money, I think we would, in fact, I mean, again, the development issues notwithstanding, we could purchase the land and say, okay, we've purchased the land, but then again, somebody might criticize us for purchasing land without having the bond issue passed. So, I mean, again, it really is a chicken or the egg kind of problem. The best we can do is tell the voters what we envision it looking like, what our plan is, and hope that the voters trust us to stick by that plan as much as we can, considering that situations sometimes change.
As Mr. Slater said, don't necessarily want to get into too many details for a land application that will be coming before City Council at some point. I have had some recent discussions within the last day with Rob Brown, the Director of Fremont Economic Development Corporation, regarding the developer at the Abbey site. We do know they're spending a lot of money on professional services, engineering, and trying to prepare their applications. We do know that one of those applications is prepared right now. They're working on their sequencing between their planned development district and subdivision, and those we're hoping will come before Planning Commission first, and then City Council, hopefully within the next 30 to 60 days.
And I appreciate your answer. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but basically you kind of gave an answer that I was kind of looking for, because you did not mention that you're looking at other locations other than the Abbey, okay? So to me, and hopefully to the public, that will solidify the fact that this is where, if everything goes right, it's going to go, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion? No, not seeing any. Let's move on to public comment. Do we have anybody from the public? Ms. Sartori?
Imagine that.
Okay.
I'm a little smaller than most out here. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for coming out to be here just to learn more. I appreciate the involvement over the years. I'm Karen Sartori. I'm an educator here in town. I've been an educator for 20 years, both in Fremont RE1 and RE2 for the last 15 years as a principal here in town, and I'm passionate about community, passionate about children, obviously, and mostly connectivity and how that all ties together. We have brought up a lot of good reasons why a community recreation center improves the quality of life, but some things that I feel like we're maybe missing that's not being spoken about is just the recruitment of high-quality professionals to our area. As a school of choice, I have people come through town often who are seeking to move to Cañon City, maybe to work in the hospital, the prisons, and so on. And part of the reason that drove me to start this is, without a doubt, people with children always want to know, is there a community recreation center? And time again, I elaborate on all the amazing outdoor recreation opportunities. I get dramatic about all the wonderful things in our area, and still I cannot answer that year-round there's something for your children to do, such as swimming and all of the different things that tie it together. I don't know, Mayor Smith, can you tell me how many of our prison workers actually live outside of our county? Do you know that number?
Probably about 70%.
Okay, 70%? In a survey done, a housing survey dated July 1st by the Department of Corrections, one of the major components that those folks talked about that would bring them to our area is an indoor recreation facility. And I think that we can't overlook those pieces that are really just out there, and we're not talking about, all of the people that are commuting here and not spending their tax dollars here. They are working here, and then they're going elsewhere to pay property taxes and to spend their dollars. And so if we could bring more of those people to our community, that's a tremendous reason to improve the quality of life through a recreation and aquatic center here in Cañon City. I feel like it's the same thing with recruiting high-quality doctors to our hospital who aren't just going to stay here for a year or two and move on. As a mom of 4, we've went through many pediatricians who have started here and they've moved on rather quickly. I would love to see people plant themselves here, invest in our community, give back, and so I just think it's important that we really look at those pieces. And they say that one of my favorite quotes is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. And I feel like when you're really looking at the investment in our future, you need to think about, this is something that's been rolling around for literally over 100 years. It goes back to the late 1800s when there was a YMCA planted in this area. And since that time, this need has never gone away, yet the cost of it will continue to increase well into the future. And so I'm just asking you to really consider that investment. I want my children to want to come back here and give to the community that raised them, that brought them up. I want to see this amazing community that is my heart and soul. I've dedicated a lot of time to it. I would love to see us continue to thrive and be a place that we're proud of, that people want to come back and spend that time. So there's lots of reasons, right? The community connectivity, the health and wellness, our police force, our firefighters, our DOC, this could be something that they train in. Instead of having a training center elsewhere, why can't we bring them here to train in Cañon City, staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, right? Why can't we recruit swim teams throughout the year to come here and spend their dollars in our community, right, with recognition? Of course, there's the amazing asset of having a year-round swimming pool, but I could drive to Pueblo, and I do, and then I eat lunch, and I go shopping, and I spend money there, right? My husband and I, when we go out of town, we have 4 kids. We look up recreation centers, and we'll spend an extra day at those centers. And so just want to kind of not be short-sighted and want to really just convince everyone to look at the bigger picture, look at the investment in our future, and recognize that it's not about a swimming pool. It's really about the entire impact on not only now, but the future of our community. So I'll stop now. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Can I add something to Karen's comment?
Absolutely.
Karen talked about the need for retention and attraction of employees and for them to live here, but we also need to have housing for them to come to, which is there's a huge lack of. And I have literally sat in this very room with quality developers who specifically said, if you want us to come here, if you pass this bond, that's nice, but having a recreation center, it's no longer an incentive or an extra perk to lure us here. It is an absolute requirement, period. It is a requirement to have a community recreation center for us to consider building housing developments in your community. And so I just wanted to add that to Karen's argument.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim Payne, former retired county commissioner, presently board president of the Cañon City Fire District. I have a couple of things. Thank you, by the way, Kyle, for your presentation and all the work that's gone into this. You mentioned a $33 million budget. Is there any way the voters can see the breakdown on that budget, on what the exact costs are going to be, or at least projected costs on everything, so the voters can see what their tax dollars are going to go to? It kind of got skimmed over. And the other thing is, the fire district is now in the process of planning a new fire station. What our project estimates were, the actual bids, the hard cost came in a couple $1 million over. Do you guys have a contingency plan on if your hard costs come in several million over your actual project?
Okay, so both good questions. So one of the things that BRS did was, are you looking for how much a warm water pool is, a leisure pool? You got to remember, so we have all that data. We can provide that. That is available, and now that we're done with BRS and have a final report, we will be putting that on our website so we can tell you what the cost of construction is. Please know that cost of construction estimates were made for 2023 construction cost. In working with Todd Snidow with Stiefel, who would be the banker selling the bonds, they conservatively, which by the way is the same company the fire district uses, we actually came up with a budget of $34 million using premium and par, using conservative numbers, even though there's a chance those numbers could end up testing higher. We did a 2023 construction budget, and BRS left $1 million on the table. They only went with $33 million. So not only are we looking at estimated 2023 construction cost, which also means salaries of staff to build it, things along those lines, we also made sure that there was a $1 million cushion in there as well. So all of those things were taken into account. The main goal, by the way, with BRS is not to leave a stone unturned. They did not.
Thanks, Kyle. Any other comments from the public? No? Okay. I'd just like to mention that, you know, some of the comments against this was, you know, is this a good time? Is it too much? Well, we could have done this, what was it, 20 years ago, Kyle, when it came up? For $10 million. Montrose built one 5 years ago that is 20%, 25% bigger than what we're building for about $8 million less than we're spending. So maybe we can wait a year or two, but it's only going up. You know, do we want to wait 5 years and get the same facilities we're looking for now for $40 million? Or is it just done after this if we don't pass it now? But it's not getting any cheaper. It never will. So, you know, to the question, is this a good time? Is there ever a good time? And we did have Dr. Ichabone, when we were going through this planning process, he came to one of the rec meetings, and he described the troubles they had just getting the Ichabone pool built and how much opposition was there. Can you imagine the kids, the generations of kids that would not have taken swim lessons here, living in a river community? We're at a point with the Ichabone pool, it's not going to be in service much longer. We're really lucky to still have it this year. We do have to look to the future, and so this is something the community really needs. And one way or the other, we've got to get a pool going because the one we have is well outlasted its life. And so, you know, we have to be as strong as they were in 1965 and look forward to our grandkids, and their kids, because this is going to be a generational thing that's going to be here for a long time. And do they deserve it? Does our community deserve to have this kind of amenity? I feel like we do. My kids are grown, gone to college. I got a couple grandkids in college. So to me, you know, maybe my time's passed, but there's a lot of young people in this community that are having kids that need to take swim lessons, that need to have this kind of amenity. And I think this is our time that we need to pass this. So I'll get off my soapbox, but go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. You talked about comments, actually. I've been getting, and I think the other commissioners have too, a few emails and a few letters from folks, and their concern is they're on a fixed income. Mr. Hawkes mentioned it earlier. We got an older population here, and they're on a fixed income, and they are not for this because of that, because it's going to affect them just like the assessor did with the values going up in this last year. So there is some negative comments out there too. I don't disagree with anything you just said, but there are people out there that are worried about it, that tax sensitivity that was brought up earlier probably, but because of that fixed income. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I understand that completely. I mean, we're in a community that does have that, but we still have to try to attract young families here, and we've got to have something for them to do. We've got to provide programs for them, and what we have has aged out, and we really have to look to the future, and we're the ones that have to make this decision for generations to come, because this is not a facility that's going to just be a few years down. This is something that'll be here for 30, 40, 50 years, and that's the vision we have to bring to this. So I think this is our time, and we need to take advantage of it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a push. We've only got 2 months left, and we're going to need a lot of support. So I just hope people get out there and support it. I know Kyle has been doing a lot of presentations out in the community, and he's going to do a lot more. And, you know, anybody out there that wants to have him come to your area, or you have some people that want to hear his presentation, just get a hold of Kyle at the Rec District. He'll go out and do a presentation for you. I know you appreciate that, Kyle. Maybe we can get you 40 or 50 more dates on the books in the next 2 months.
I have another 32 scheduled.
Oh,
So.
you're almost there.
There you go. So, you know, we'll try to get the information out there. It's just facts that Kyle's putting out there, so that's where we need to go.
I do want to mention on the taxes, to make sure everybody understands, the 3.5 mill levy does not sunset. That would take the Recreation District mill levy to 7.009. So I want to make sure that is known. The other issue is the bond. Keep in mind, as growth continues, for example, Abbey build-out, Rural Gorge Ranch and Resorts, if 4 Mile continues to build out, if those things happen, as there's more value and assessed value within the community, that bond payment that is due on mills begins to drop. Very similar to what the school district, Cañon City School District, is going through now. Their mills, for example, on the Harrison project through the years, has dropped through the years. So that would be a similar thing now, because that number will look at dropping as growth occurs. That one will sunset because construction is set for this project only. It is only for this project. We couldn't send those monies anywhere else per Tabor. So just wanted to make sure that that was known by the public as well.
Okay. Any other? Did you want, Brendan, or?
I just wanted to echo something that Mayor Smith had said earlier. When it comes to economic development, whether it be restaurants or housing or the things that we're interested in here, this is kind of the catalyst project that's going to get that economic development sparked. And growth is inevitable. We just built 2 brand new schools because of our growth problems, and I just don't see any way around it. Thank you.
Mayor Smith?
I just want to say that my previous questions, there were a lot of hard questions that needed to be asked, just dispassionately looking at the data that was presented to us today. But moving to a more passionate argument, and that was also on the top of the persuasion arguments that were given in that data, was about families and kids. And I have 6 children. My first kind of set when we were a young family was in a different community that had a community recreation center that was supported by the community. And we were newly graduated from starving student into the workforce with tons of student loans and debt. But we could afford a membership at the community recreation center. And those older kids, we still fondly look back on those days where we frequented that community rec center a lot, especially the Friday nights where they all went swimming and we got them all tuckered out and tired, and we showered them at the rec center and put them in their fuzzy pajamas and then got them in the car to go to bed at night. Just wonderful times for our family. Fast forward to today with a younger set of kids. Just this very last week, I have a 10-year-old. He's in 5th grade. He attends Lincoln Elementary School. So 2 sides to his life. He was in the school when the panic button was pushed, and the police, they were locked down. They were in their classrooms. It was dark. Kids were crying. Police had to come with guns. It was very, very scary and a very traumatic experience for all of those kids. You times that by the uncertainties of COVID, global unrest, you just keep adding all of these burdens that our little kids have. That very same week, I took the same child to the rec district. He signed up for tackle football for his first time in his life. He got to get the shoulder pads, the helmet, the mouth guard, the jersey. He wears it every single day. He probably would really like to sleep in it at night, and he's so excited. That's the childhood I want my kids and our community and our future kids to have, to take them out of the scary world that we have to raise them in today and give them those moments of joy and pleasure and model a healthy lifestyle with happiness and family time. And a community rec center can take what you are doing already and exponentially create that for a year-round experience.
Remember, taking the helmet off is the hard part.
Well,
Kids
actually,
cry over that
the hardest
one.
part is figuring out how to incorporate the glasses with it. But this
Yeah.
is real life for our family. Those two dichotomies.
I want to mention one other thing, and this is again going back into research on the project, and again comparing ourselves to other special districts who operate recreation centers: Eaton, Estes Park, Meeker, Montrose. In speaking with them, there were some common themes. There's a misconception that recreation centers are designed for families and kids. That's not always the case. That is one user group. Your largest user group, or if not the largest, then the number 2 user group, are seniors. This improves the quality of life for seniors. Some of the comments in speaking with Tom Carasallo at Estes Park, Ken Sherbino, the former director at Montrose, the feedback that they received at their facility from seniors who are using their facility. If they could go back in time, and they voted no, but the project still passed. But if they could go back in time, they would change their vote to yes, because it improved their quality of life. Those are the comments from other communities and other directors. It has a profound impact on all ages, toddlers to those into their 90s. And that's what we're trying to create.
I want to make one final comment.
Go ahead.
We've spent a lot of time here listening to all the information that's been given to us. Everybody in the audience, everybody sitting up here, the commissioners down there. The burden now basically is on each and every one of us. If you think this is worthwhile, pass on the word. They're going to come and ask you. They're going to come and ask you, Mr. Commissioner, you went to that meeting, okay? You have to be able to give them your answer that you believe is truthful. If you think it's worthwhile, then you have to stand up to the plate and say, I think it's worthwhile. If you don't, that's fine. But let's not say we don't want to say nothing just because of our positions. You know, I'm on city council, everyone's is on city council. And I'll tell you what, if somebody come and ask me how I feel about this, I'm not gonna be afraid to say I support it, okay? And each and every one of us out there in the audience, if someone comes and asks you, folks, if you really think it's worth it, then that's your job in a sense. You also are the folks that can help sell this, if you think it's worthwhile. If you don't, then that's also your right to vote yes or no. But don't be afraid to stand up to the plate and say, I think it is, or I see the faults in it. Each and every one of us. Take that with you to your home.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Ann Brown. As you can see, I'm a senior citizen. I'm also a homeowner. And I'm 100% behind this development. Back in the 80s, I happened to be one of the founding mothers on the Pueblo Community College Board to get the Pueblo Community College Center here in Cañon City. And look at what a beautiful facility we have now. So I hope that you'll all think about things like that and go along with this. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good. Ms. Gonzalez?
What was her name? Ann
Brown.
Ann Brown. I wanted to kind of talk about what she just spoke about a little bit. I just started a new job at the Cañon City Middle School. I worked there previously a few years ago, and the building was very rundown and very, it was in need of repair. But with the new mill levy for the school district, they were able to build part of a new school and redesign the older part of the school. And I have to say, it has made a huge difference in the way children interact during their day. They are proud to be there. They're proud of their environment. They seem to be doing better work, but that may just be because it's beginning of the school year. But anyways, I just want to say that it's made a huge improvement in everybody in the whole building, having a new facility. And if we had a rec center that was beautiful and new, and I mean, over time, it won't be beautiful and new as it was, but it's something that we can take pride in our community for. So I'm behind this 100%. I just wanted to share that little tidbit. I wasn't going to, but then she said what she said. So we have to think of things like that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sonia, and I just want to say I fully support the rec center because I've been here 3 years, and recreational has been very tough for me. I checked out the two elite or I can't remember what they call them, but Elite Fitness and another rec center here, and they were not very wheelchair accessible. I saw where Elite Fitness could be, but because of the kind of rec center it was, they didn't have to have a hydraulic chair in them, the pool area. So that was challenging for me. And so I hope that's another thing that the rec center for the pools will have is a hydraulic chair in the pools. And I'm sure since they are going to have to be ADA compliant that they will. But I'm not, and I'm an advocate here, as many of you probably know. I have a website called Cañon City Advocates, and I have 2 team members that are working with me. We're really trying to help make a little bit of change in this community. And we're for everyone. We're not just for people with disabilities. We're for the elderly. You know, we want to help the elderly in this community too. We don't want to just help people with disabilities. We want to help everyone in this community. So So I am fully for this rec center, and I really hope that it will pass to where it will bring even people with disabilities in this community, because I have asked, are there people with disabilities here? And I see them, but how active are they? They aren't very active because there's not a lot to offer for them here. So I really hope that more can be brought in this community to offer for people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we do have a current lift chair at the Ichabod Pool, and yes, for ADA compliance, there would be lift chairs required in all aquatic facilities, as well as meeting ADA requirements facility-wide.
Okay. Any more discussion, anything from the public? Okay, since it's past my bedtime, let's move on to certification of ballot measures, ballot content for November 2nd election, coordinated election. So resolution 2021-10. Can I get a motion on that?
I would make a motion that the board pass resolution 2021-10.
And can I get a second? Okay, Nick, can I get a reading on that?
Yes, Resolution 2021, a resolution calling an election on November 2nd, 2021, and certifying ballot measures for elector approval for a mill levy increase and to incur and pay debt, setting the ballot titles and text for the ballot measures, and providing other matters relating to the election.
Okay. We all had a chance to read that. I know I did this afternoon. Do we have any more discussion on board on that? Okay, Mr. Sartori, can I get a roll call vote on that?
Yes, sir. Fred James? Yes. Craig Dorito?
Yes.
Mike Sally?
Aye.
Jim Johnson?
Aye.
Nick Sartori? Aye.
Okay. Resolution 2021-10 passes. And with that, bid you all a good evening, and we're adjourned.